see this on screen, but Alex Hutchinson, or at Bang Bang Click on Twitter, went for some spicy takes recently that was very, very noticed online. His original
very
tweet,
noticed.
Very noticed.
Very noticed. 2020.
It got a lot of. When your tweet gets 5.1 thousand comments, but only 7.9 thousand likes, you did something. And it might not be something good. And when the follow-up tweet to that gets 18,000 comments and still only 5.1 thousand likes, you know you didn't do something great. His take starts with streamers worried about getting their content pulled because they've used music, which context for this, there was a lot of DMCA takedown emails that came from Twitch about people's back catalog, music being used in that back catalog that went out very recently. This is something we knew was coming. We've talked about this on the WAN show in the past, but the action really happened very recently. So again, he says streamers worried about getting their content pulled because they used music they didn't pay for should be more worried by the fact that they're streaming games they didn't pay for as well. It's all gone as soon as publishers decide to enforce it. And he follows that up with, the real truth is streamers should be paying the developers and publishers of the games they stream. They should be buying a license like any real business and paying for the content they use. This is interesting. And people aren't going to like this, but I don't completely disagree with him in all scenarios. I think it should be up to the publisher. And I think basically any publisher that tried to enforce it that way would be an idiot. And we have experienced this in the past. We saw it with Nintendo. What did you say? Sorry?
Sorry, I had something really stupid caught in my throat there.
Nintendo, yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I think
we
I
saw
got
this
it.
with Nintendo in the past, and it was stupid, and everyone hated it, and the viewers hated it, and the streamers hated it, and it was bad for Nintendo in a lot of ways.
Totally toxic.
And they've eased up on it in more recent years, and it has been significantly better for the viewers and the streamers and Nintendo. Like, it is just holistically better for everyone. There are some scenarios where I question how real that would necessarily be. Games that are extremely narrative focused, basically walking simulator games, pretty much the whole experience can be had by watching it. And in those scenarios, those developers might not want people to stream it, and I think they should have the right to be like, yeah, I don't want you to stream my game. That being said, having the right and should do are different, and his verbiage here is talking about like something that will happen as if it's inevitable, and he says specifically they should be buying a license. I do not believe that game streamers should be buying a license, and I think 2020 of any year is a great example for why that shouldn't be a thing. Games that are popping off are Fall Guys, Among Us. Those games would not have popped off if it wasn't for streamers. And perfect hardline evidence for that is Among Us. Among Us didn't launch and immediately become popular with
streamers. It's like 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, Among Us was out for a long time and was irrelevant.
Yeah.
It was a cool little game, but it had like, I think, peaks of like 200 concurrent players. And now it has peaks of like, oh my God, everyone, including like American politicians and the biggest YouTubers and also the biggest Twitch stars. That game was made by streamers. Like the success of that game, was made by streamers. So the take is bad, but it becomes a lot more interesting when you look into
who Alex Hutchinson is.
And when you look into the way he is operating and using things.
Okay.
We'll get into what he does in a moment. I want to do one thing.
I want to debate with you. Okay.
Okay, hold on.
I can shut up. This is a skill I have. I can remain silent.
My favorite thing, which was pointed out by Jacksepticeye, I didn't recognize this at first. The cover photo, or whatever you want to call it, the banner photo that he has on Twitter for Savage Planet. That is some game that he worked on. Except the cover photo is of Jacksepticeye. It's a fan art. It's not his. Alex doesn't own that. The person in the photo is supposed to be Jacksepticeye in the game. And what is cut off, what is cropped off, and no, it doesn't just not show up because Twitter squished it. If you click on the photo, it is still not there, but you can see 3 little lines that come up from it is the signature of the person who drew the fan art. There is no attribution and no credit given to the person who drew the fan art. So does his opinion only go as far as music and games and does not reach into the realm of art in the form of something drawn? I'm not sure. But he is also creative director at SG&E Montreal Studio. It used to say in his Twitter bio, it used to say something different. It used to say creative director at Google Stadia and has been updated since this all happened. I'm not necessarily sure why. But yeah, it was updated. Sorry, you can go.
So I'm going to jump in and agree with you.
Okay. I thought you were going to debate me.
No, I can't, because the problem is that the way copyright law works and the way that it should work is that you own the rights to how your content is used. So a perfect example of that is that if someone were to make a video, let's say they download, you know, our review of the RTX 3080 and they play it back and they're like, oh wow, this is some really good B-roll footage, and like, you know what, my 3080 is sitting in my rig over there. I don't feel like pulling it out and getting a camera. I'm gonna use this to supplement my content. Now, depending on how they do that, how they utilize the footage, do they leave in my commentary? Do they credit it? Is their work transformative enough? Does it affect, what are the 4 pillars of fair use again? There's transformation, fair use, here we go. So the purpose and character of your use, what's it for? So if it's for, you know, educating the public about the dangers of this Linus Tech Tips character, then that would be something that would be considered, you know, important for public interest and therefore more likely to fall under fair use. The nature of the copyrighted work. So that's where you get into the style of the game. You could even make the argument that certain styles of game are inherently covered by fair use to play them. I would make the argument that, yeah, go ahead.
So I was thinking about this and I strongly agree. And I think a lot of multiplayer competitive games, especially things like shooters, would totally fall under that.
And Among Us and Fall Guys are examples of content where the participants, Among Us, I think is just such a prime example. The participants are the content. Yes. All this is like a setting. It's kind of like
medium,
it's kind of like making the argument that, you know, because you exist in this building, whoever the builder of it is or architect of it is, you know, owns the work that you do in it, the film that you make in it. It's like, no, actually, the content is the interaction between these people on the spaceship that are trying to fix it or not. The third pillar is the amount and substantiality of the portion taken. So if you take just a little bit versus like you might do in a review. So David from our team did a review of Last of Us 2, where, he shows a lot of gameplay footage, but it's not just the amount, it's the substantiality of it. So is it a lot of gameplay footage of wandering around? Or did he just make a mashup of every story cutscene and then upload it so that you don't have to buy the game? That's where you get into that one. And then that ties in really nicely with pillar number 4, which is the effect of the use upon the potential market for the original art. So once again, depending on the type of game, Among Us is a key example of something where, honestly, streaming it can do pretty much nothing but get people amped on this game and wanting to play it. And the only way to play it, legitimately, is to buy it.
It would be very, very, very difficult to make an argument that streaming Among Us reduces sales. There is games where it would be very, very easy to make an argument that streaming that game does reduce sales.
100%.
It's not that common, I'd say, but it is definitely a thing. And there are games where if I was a publisher for a lot of those games, honestly, I would still want them streamed.
It's tough, though. It's really tough.
But it is tough. I could totally understand someone not having that opinion.
If I was a developer for a really, really rich, story-driven, single-player experience game where I went out of my way to not embed it with a bunch of microtransactions and crap and I released this game for a fair price, you know, let's say $29.99 for this game. I'm a pretty small development studio. Okay. Yep. And a whole bunch of streamers get out there, you know, the day before launch with their pre-release copies, pretty much upload, you know, the game, skipping through the boring parts and into these like four-part, 4 1-hour videos uploaded to YouTube, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. Okay, now I've moved on to my next thing. They're doing nothing in the long term, actually promoting the game. They've just basically uploaded my game to YouTube and the reviews are great, but my sales suck. I would be really choked because that's a type of game that people claim to want. Yeah. People say, hey, you know, what happened to gaming? Why is everything microtransactions? Why is everything multiplayer only? What happened to long, deep single player narratives? Well, that's something that could very well be what happened to long single player narratives and also money. But that is a factor, and ignoring that factor, I think, is not looking at the bigger picture in a fair manner.
Yeah, and I think his take on it was terrible, and I think the entire industry has told him that time and time again at this point. Yeah. And hopefully someone who's a creative director at a freaking gaming studio and had at least something to do with Stadia, despite it no longer being in his bio.
Yeah.
I would hope that he would understand that. And it genuinely concerns me for the future of the games that he has any opinion on their development of, that he actually thought and or thinks that way. But ultimately, I don't think that is a common opinion in the industry. If you look at how this is actually being dealt with by actual people, a lot of streamers are paid to play games, not the other way around.
Not the other way around. And it's sort of like, it's laughable, right? To say that, oh, well, you know, you should license the game and then, you know, the developer should, so you should pay to license the game and then the developer should pay you to play it. Like, why am I just pulling money out of my right pocket to put in your right pocket and you pull it out of your left pocket to put it in my left pocket? Like, why are we playing this, why are we doing this dance? It doesn't make any sense.
You're just inflating a bunch of like payment processors takes for no reason.
Exactly.
Which is like personally offensive to me, but that's a different conversation.
100%.
But like, it's silly. It's a bad take. And I think one thing that I would suggest to take from this is, like, if you do watch a streamer and they are playing a very narrative heavy single player game that doesn't necessarily look like its mechanics or its action or anything like that are really what make it good. And what makes it good is the fact that you're basically like watching an interactive movie. Maybe try to find a way to support those guys.
Maybe don't buy some bits that day. Maybe buy that game that day. That might be a good idea.
Or go buy some merch even. A lot of games these days will have like a soundtrack or a shirt or something. Like try to throw something towards those developers, because I can definitely feel sympathy for that. And I love those types of games. Sometimes, I don't know, sometimes I want other things. It's games, whatever. So yeah. Also, I just realized that he worked on my least favorite Assassin's Creed game ever. Thanks, buddy.
How about that? So cool. Tankmaster in the YouTube chat says, the problem is streamers aren't protected by the EULA. They're actually breaking the terms of service the way game EULAs are written currently. And that is a good point. But the problem is that there's the legality, and then there's the morality, and then there's the court of public opinion. There's sort of like multiple facets to any kind of decision like this. From a legal point of view, Nintendo was right. That's our Mario sprite. And no, you may not monetize it. Like, they weren't wrong, but they were stupid, you know? From like a moral standpoint, going after people that are honestly not making a ton of money, you know, people like speedrunners or level designers or like the kinds of, and again, that comes down to those 4 pillars, right? Speedrunning a game does not have nearly the effect on the potential market for the product as playing it properly and having someone sit and watch you. You could make that argument. And then there's also the court of public opinion, where you can do these things and you might be legally and maybe even morally correct, but people are going to hate you for it. And at the end of the day, you're a business that relies on the goodwill of your customers. So maybe you just better not do that. Now, the problem with fair use, we had a really interesting fair use conversation in our community this week. What happened was, oh man, when was it? I have a stream called Addressing the Drama from about 1,000 years ago.
A year ago, I think.
Addressing the Drama. It was at least a year ago. Streamed a year ago. All right. So a year ago, we had an issue where a smaller YouTuber was issued a copyright notice. To be clear, that is not the same thing as a copyright strike. So there was no effect on their channel. But what happens is if you're issued a copyright notice, it means that some other entity, whether it's like a music label or another YouTuber or a movie house, some other entity said, hey, your video contains my copyrighted content, so you need to let me monetize that video, but it's okay. You can leave it up and there's no strikes on your channel. It's not going to get deleted or anything, but that's actually my content and you need to give me the money. So what happened was we issued through our MCN a copyright notice to a smaller YouTuber for some gameplay, or actually it was benchmark footage that was included in their video. Now, we dug into what happened. It was not something we did maliciously, and it was not something that we did manually or on purpose at all. And what happened was our threshold for recognizing our video clips. So we enabled a feature through our MCN, or multi-channel network, that will look for our footage in other people's videos and claim against it. Because we've had big problems in the past with people just re-uploading our videos to these rando no-name channels. And it's actually a lot of my time personally to take those down. Like I have to go fill out a whole form, and when I have to do like 6 or 8 of them a day, like it's very time consuming, and I'm sure you guys would rather me just spend my time making videos rather than taking down other people's re-uploads of them. So we enabled this feature, but what happened was the threshold was set very low. I think it was set to about 15 seconds of match. And so it grabbed benchmark footage, like screen cap of a benchmark that they also used, and claimed it. Now, all it was a matter of doing was saying, hey guys, what's up? And we said, oh, sorry about that. Reverse the claim. All you have to do is dispute the claim and it'll send a notification back to whoever claimed it. We got that all sorted out, and we changed our threshold to a minute. Now, what happened this week was another YouTuber, in this case it was Adored TV, uploaded a video, and the kind of ironic thing about it was that, I think probably from his perspective, was that his video used a chunk of our video as sort of like validation that his take was correct. It was a clip of me agreeing with him. And then I think what happened was he got this notification, oh, by the way, Linus Media Group Inc., actually Fullscreen Inc., has claimed this content because it contains, however long, I think it was 57 seconds or whatever it was, of copyrighted content from this video from Linus Media Group Inc. I forget exactly what the wording of the notice that he got was, but apparently not being familiar with this wording, he thought, or like with this process, he thought that we had manually claimed the video and were taking his revenue. And what happened anyway, the point is, I found out about it. We got it dealt with in about 10 minutes. It's all sorted out. We had some Twitter feuding and we're good now. It's all water under the bridge. But what was really interesting about this whole ordeal was that it raised some really interesting conversations about what exactly is fair use and how does it work. A lot of people seemed to think that it was as simple as, when people thought that this was me manually claiming his money, which is like, I don't know what the AdSense on it would be, like $60 by the time I had looked at it. Like it didn't have a ton of views yet.
It's definitely worth the drama. I can understand the business decision there.
I need that $60 that badly. I really do. And to be clear, once it's reversed, it all goes back to the original creator. I don't keep any of it, even if it was like claimed by me for 2 hours or whatever. So people seemed to think that this was like me being evil and not understanding fair use and like, Linus, this is clearly fair use. The thing about fair use is that it's actually not cut and dried. What it is it's 4 pillars, not 4...
4 things you can argue in court, basically.
Yes. And you actually, I'm glad that you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned argue in court, because the way that it works is you actually have to argue these things. And there's no clear measurement for, you know, what people had all kinds of thoughts about how fair use worked. Well, it was a minute of content, but it was only 4% of the total video because it was a much longer video. Therefore, it's fair use. No, that's not how that works. Or people said, well, he wasn't saying anything mean about Linus, so it's fair use. Which again, no, it's
I'd almost
not
say
how
if
that
you were
works.
saying something mean, it would probably be easier to place it as a review, and you'd probably get by with it almost more easily in the eyes of a jury or something.
Well, it depends, because if it was defamatory, then you could make the argument
True,
that
yeah.
Its effect on the potential market was very negative, because he's effectively attacking the opinion of someone who lives and dies, or the reputation of someone who lives and dies by their reputation. So, but that's what it is. So that's why it actually doesn't matter how much of it was, or all these arbitrary things that people seem to have latched onto as like, what definitely makes something fair use. Fair use is an argument. It is not a set of rules. So the purpose and character of your use, the nature of the copyrighted work, the amount and substantiality of the portion taken, and the effect on the potential market for the original work. And remember too, that fair use, like these guidelines, as far as I know, are just based on United States copyright laws. They are not necessarily applicable in every jurisdiction around the world. So you could very easily be infringing on the copyright of some developer in Lithuania or something. To be clear, I know absolutely nothing about Lithuanian copyright law, but fair use might not necessarily apply. And if somehow they manage to get you dragged into a Lithuanian legal proceeding, it might not go well for you. I don't know how they do that. Maybe you have a stopover in Lithuania on the way to wherever it is you're flying to once the world returns to normal. But the point is, somehow they get you extradited. The point is, fair use is not as simple as people seem to think that it is. The very fact that you are a game streamer and therefore streaming games is fair use, no, not to the law. But in the same way that you would have to make your argument to a court about why what you're doing is fair use, whoever is defending their copyright would have to make an argument to a court about that it is not fair use, which is why, as we saw with that whole H3H3 thing that went down a couple of years ago now, I think it was, this kind of legal proceeding can get very long, very drawn out, and very, very expensive, which is why it's far better. So back to what the law is versus what you should do, it's far better to just not put this much work and money into doing nothing but pissing off your customers and just let people game stream. So that's why Alex Hutchinson's take is bad. Not because he's wrong, but because it's a bad, dumb take.
It's just stupid. And a lot of the verbiage that he used was him saying what people should do. Not what is like entirely within their rights or what like they're capable of. He was like, no, this is how it should work, blah, blah, blah. And that's really dumb. So that was a bad take. And that's why it was so bad. I think he could have gotten what I'm hoping was his point across in a different way if he didn't use that type of wording. I also think it is truly hilarious that he isn't attributing the artist for his cover photo. That is like, that really makes this whole thing like so much worse. And the fact that Jacksepticeye posted that, I'm sure he saw Jacksepticeye's post.
I doubt it. Jacksepticeye, he's a pretty small figure in the gaming space. He's probably never heard of him.
the fact that he hasn't responded and like, I don't know, apologize.
Or just changed it. Fine.
Or changed it.
Yeah, you don't want to own your mistake? Fine. Quietly change it then. Do something. Why is it still there?
Do you remember how I said like it had a lot of traction, but it didn't have like the interaction you would want? I was pointing out the like comments versus likes and stuff.
Yeah, just see how many times it got ratioed?
Yeah. Basically, Jacksepticeye's post got 48,000 likes. His got 5.1.
Yeah.
Like,
I forget
oh
who
my
I saw
God.
who just posted, oh yeah, I think it was Pokimane, was just like, I'm gonna just put this here so that you can see how badly you're gonna get ratioed or something like that.
Oh my
It's
God. Yeah,
great.
that probably blew up.
Oh lordy.
I
So dumb.
only learned that term today, by the way.
Oh really? Oh, okay. Me too.
Ratioed? Yeah.
Yeah, I learned it
Yeah.
from this. I was like, oh, that makes sense. That's funny. I've seen that happen before. I'm glad we have a word for that. Nader, I love that Twitch streamers are trying to say they're promoting the songs and saying DMCA is a group of people, not a law. Welcome to real copyright policy, which is what YouTube has had for years. Yeah, yeah. Streamers who think that they're going to be able to get away with songs. Yeah, you got away with the whole game thing. Feel lucky. I agree with that aspect of what's his name's.
There is. So
Alex
I don't.
Hutchinson's take.
I'm not feeling it this much for songs, but there is some argument there, and there have been some artists that have come out and either directly worked with their publisher to make sure that it's okay to play their songs on Twitch, or expressed that they don't agree with how their publisher is treating it, because especially streamers that accredit properly and like will show like a Spotify thing in the bottom corner, it'll show what's currently playing, etc. I could see that as being good promotion.
Or
and if
where to buy link, whatever, because it's all about
yeah.
what's the impact on the original work, right?
Yes. So
But
if you're making it so that, because like if I go to a stream and there's a song playing and I dig it and I can't relatively easily figure out what that song is, that's silly, unless they have the rights to do that. But I think if they're like actively promoting the music, if I was a musician, I would probably want that to happen, because I don't gain anything from it not being played. And I don't think there's any opportunity cost there. I don't think someone's going to go, oh, I'm going to watch this streamer because I can listen to this specific song, instead of watching it on YouTube, where it's almost certainly going to be and also be free, or somewhere else. Like I honestly, in general, I don't agree with the music argument. And I think in almost every case, as long as it's properly attributed, the music artist is gaining quite a bit by it being on Twitch. But the same as the game argument, it's still in their court, and they should be able to make that decision. I think they are improperly making that decision, but they should be able to make that decision.
And it comes down to precedent, right? Like the music industry hasn't set this precedent that you're just like allowed to use music in your other art. They do not consider like, you know, you can't make a movie and be like, yeah, we're gonna put Playing with the Boys in our movie, and it's transformative enough because our movie is, you know, the art, and this is just supplemental. Like music has been considered integral as part of the greater viewing experience of whatever other type of medium it's integrated with, in such a way that's really poorly worded. The point is, music has never been seen as having been transformed by visuals set to it. It has never worked that way. So there's no precedent for them to have to give in this way. And the other part is that while game developers are directly off their customers by not allowing Twitch streamers to play the games on stream, music labels don't seem to see it that way, even though if they're making the argument that people listening to it on the stream is digging into their sales, then they do understand they're their customers. I don't know. Maybe they think that gamers don't listen to music.
I think a lot of music labels are treating this improperly in regards to their own benefit, and I think they would be much better off if they actually let the streamers play the songs. But that's their thing, you know. They can make the wrong decision there as much as they want.